All right, welcome everybody to today's sales enablement session. As usual, please kindly mute your microphones for our speaker, William here. I did go ahead and drop our link to the notes document in the chat. And today, William's going to be going over our operational efficiencies value driver. William?
Awesome, cool. Thank you, John. Really excited to chat about increasing operational efficiencies. So some of the background, of course, within the current context, globally, there is, as we all know, as we've all been ourselves experiencing and on the phone with our customers and prospects, the times are unique, and our message and the way we talk with folks just needs to change and adapt to that as well. So we've been chatting a lot recently about having empathy as we reach out to folks, understanding where they're at and what's going on with their business within the entire context of the global pandemic. And also that we can be helpful. GitLab is a product, and there's different businesses within our current context that are helpful, and GitLab is one of them. And so one of the shifts in messaging that we can have is often we have pushed very heavily in the past on digital transformation and innovation. Those are things that GitLab is terrific for. But in the current culture, that's not necessarily where folks, where their mind is at. Maybe today they're thinking more about business resiliency. Maybe they're thinking today more about efficiency. And so in terms of GitLab's value drivers, increasing operational efficiency is a value that we can bring to businesses and a message that we can share. And so today we wanted to just cover this briefly. I want to go through some of our content that's available, refresh some folks on the line so that you know where it's at and know where to access it. And then if we have some time as well, we've recently all been doing quarterly business reviews. And what's come up during our quarterly business reviews on the ones that I've been on, some of the other ones I've heard of, are amazing tactics that you all have been using and sharing with each other in your QBR teams. And we would love to understand some of those more broadly and share those more broadly with the team. So if we have some time today, we will get through all of that. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And everything I will be talking about today is linked in the issue here. So that should be in the doc, which I don't know. Is this in the doc, John?
I will put it in the doc if it's not there.
Cool. So we will link it to this issue in the notes doc, and all of the links that I'm sharing are linked in this issue as well. Of course, they're all in the handbook and on our website, so they should be easy for you to access. So the first, of course, I want to point to is under our command of the message page in the handbook. Under our core resources content is the GitLab value framework. This should be one we're all extremely familiar with. This is your best friend. Funny enough, I used to keep a laminated version on my desk. I had a binded-in version of this. We recently are moving, so my wife packed everything up, so I can't show you my hard copy. But the digital copy of the value framework is one that we know this backwards and forwards. It's your best friend. I don't want to go over it too much, but I do just want to talk about our value driver of increasing operational efficiencies and the command of the message framework that we can go through here. In particular, in the before and the negative consequences, in an environment where we need to be more efficient, where we need to make the most of the staff we have, where a lot of companies have curtailed hiring and are trying to make the most of their current team, GitLab can really increase their operational efficiencies. An environment where you have many DevOps tools, this is our core message of when you have many DevOps tools, this has operational overhead. So you have to integrate all of those tools. You have to maintain all of those tools. Whenever you need to upgrade to a new version, you need to upgrade all of those tools across your tool chain. And so having many brittle integrations, there's a lot of problems with it. But in particular, it takes additional resources to manage that you could be shifting onto innovation work rather than maintenance work. And so that is one of the highlights here that I wanted to call out in the document in terms of how we do it and how we do it better, is that you can increase operational efficiencies, and GitLab allows you to take engineering resources that would just be spent on integration, that would just be spent on maintenance mode, but instead you can put that into product work and into driving your product forward. And so you can be more efficient. You get more. You can do more with less, and that is a terrific message. It's something that we help our customers with. Of course, don't take my word for it. We have many of our customers who share this is exactly the value that GitLab has brought for them. There are so many of them, and really, if you go to our customer proof points page and you search for the phrase tool chain, you can see that there are so many here: Axway, ESA, EAB, Athlinks, and then this is a guide. When I wrap up my time here, I want to talk about this Forrester report that we commissioned, that for a third party, Forrester went and did the research and actually proved this out. So just to look at a few of these, this is the European Space Agency. So from the proof points page, if you click on these links and you actually go over to the case study, these are terrific assets and case studies to share with your customers. And if you want to pull some parts out of this, these case studies are kind of long, but I want to point you to some specific parts that you can share today that really mesh well with our message of increasing operational efficiencies. So this is a great quote here from the folks at the European Space Agency, that when they adopted GitLab, they had several tools that were all disparate. And when the tools are all disparate, you don't have visibility into all of those. It's hard to understand what's happening in all of those. And you don't have as much collaboration, so you're not as effective as a team. You're not as efficient and productive as a team. So this is from the ESA. They say to see people collaborating is contagious. People are saying, hey, I want to have a project like that, or I want to participate. These kinds of things can happen because everybody has access. So one of the values of GitLab, one of the values of having a single tool that many people can work together in, is that they have that visibility. It increases that collaboration. It makes them more efficient. You can do more with less. It increases your operational efficiency. And of course, in an environment where you need to work remotely, GitLab is designed to allow you to collaborate remotely. It's a very powerful part of the story. Here is for EAB, an educational service. They power over 1,500 schools and colleges and universities. And they talk specifically about overcoming their toolchain complexity. One of the things they say is that their continuous integration process was split. It required Bamboo, Jenkins, Laro, Circle. They're running all these each at their own time. And it would take 6 or 8 hours to run and build a single thread at a time. So this was one of the challenges they faced. And of course, adopting GitLab, they were able to move to 20-minute builds from 6 hours. So this is just one of those types of operational efficiencies. Instead of waiting 6 hours for something to complete, they can get that same work done in 20 minutes within GitLab. And it's because they simplified their tool chain and increased that operational efficiency. Moving right along, one of the pages I want to point out is from our pricing page. This is another awesome quote. So you may all not know about this one, but if you go to our pricing page, these are actually links. And I know a lot of you use these all the time, but I just want to keep sharing about them because I know some people don't realize that you can actually click on these. And if you click on Ultimate or Premium or Starter, it'll tell you why. Why should you use this plan? And it goes right along with our value drivers. This is a phenomenal quote here from the folks at Glimpse, where they had 20 tools that they consolidated into GitLab. And Glimpse remediated security issues faster than any other company in their security auditor's experience. This is a high praise for GitLab. This is one that made them not only more efficient, increased their operational efficiencies, but also made them more secure. So that is great content to share. This is a good page to share, but specifically, if you want to pull out one quote, that's kind of what I'm highlighting for you right now. Moving along to Axway. Axway is a tricky study. There's some nuance to sharing this one, and I'll talk about that right now. So the amazing part of Axway is that they went to a 26x faster release cycle. So the challenge here is that Axway historically, or with this case study, is an SCM case study. So even though we're talking about release cycles in the headline, at the time they were not using GitLab CI/CD. So it sounds like a CI/CD use case, but it is in fact not. Today they actually are on GitLab CI/CD, and we have an update of this use case coming with more information about how they use CI/CD. But to use the existing use case, this is a phenomenal use case to share with any of your companies that are still on legacy version control. So for example, Axway was on Subversion. And if you read the story, this was blocking them basically from adopting GitOps at all. One of the messages I heard in a QBR yesterday was, we mentioned DevOps, and that's well known to us, but they were on the phone with a prospect, or they were on a Zoom call with a prospect, and they started talking about DevOps, and this prospect was like, "You keep throwing around DevOps. We're not really sure what that is. Can you unpack that for us?" And so there are a lot of companies that have not adopted DevOps. Maybe they're not even familiar with DevOps, and they're still using legacy version control systems like Subversion. And Subversion was even a blocker. Axway couldn't even adopt DevOps because their Subversion toolchain was so complex. And so the story here is by first adopting Git version control, that's what unblocked them and just allowed them to adopt a DevOps toolchain. And at the time, they used other DevOps tools. But like I said, as over time today, they're actually using and adopting GitLab CI/CD as well. So this is a phenomenal use case for switching off of those old chains to get on something that increases your operational efficiencies and unblocks you from doing more with less today. The other one here is Athlinks, also great. DevOps tools run short. Similar story, good quotes in here. This is a section to look at. And then I want to move over to our Forrester resource. So I realized I went through that one quick. All of those are, like I said, that's linked from here in the proof points document. So I wanted to go through those quick and share those sections. The next document I want to talk about is our Forrester toolchain report. This is an amazing report. We commissioned this as a third party, so it would be objective. And they went out and did the interview and did the research and said, how painful is it to have a separate, disparate toolchain? The answer is it's pretty painful. So you can find this linked under the marketing materials repository. I think this is an old link, but there's literally an MR that is deploying to production as we speak. And this link in the next 20, 30 minutes is going to take you to this spreadsheet. This is a GitLab internal only spreadsheet. And the way to use this spreadsheet is we're having some conversation around having a more formal content management system. So in the future, we should get you something better, but in true GitLab fashion, we've gone MVC iteration. So the first iteration, just to enable you and get you started, a lot of you I know have already seen this spreadsheet and are already using it. And so for those that haven't seen it yet, I just want to reiterate how to use this. When you have a customer or a prospect that you already have a relationship with and you're already working with, and you want to send them a direct link to an asset. For example, let's say our Forrester report on managing your toolchain before it manages you, there is a direct link. So this direct link here takes you directly to the PDF so that you can have direct access to this PDF, and I'll go over this PDF in just a moment. So that's one you can share directly with customers. But of course, we also want to share this on social. Some of you on the call are really tremendous at sharing content and links out on LinkedIn, and have done a really good job of using not just LinkedIn, but other social channels as well. But I often see your posts from LinkedIn. And so here is a great page to share on LinkedIn. This one is, of course, a gated asset. We don't want to share the asset itself on social media like Twitter or LinkedIn, but it talks about the challenges of having a tool chain. It talks about the inefficiencies, and if folks want to download the study, they can. So here's the link for social media. Here's the link for to share directly with your customers and prospects, and you can find that in the spreadsheet. That is, of course, everything is always linked from the handbook. So this is an awesome report. If you haven't read it, it is a quick read. It's only 10 pages. It's 8 pages even. So this is a very quick read, but it is a hard-hitting report. I'm just going to highlight a few sections here. You can see that you can improve security with a single solution, and this one right here is. Let me see if I can just zoom in on the point. So this is coming from Forrester, not even from us, right? That you can reduce your resource expenditure on tool chain maintenance, right? This is their recommendation, that tool chain maintenance, it costs a lot of money. In the current environment, we're looking for ways to run efficient, to run lean, to do the most with less. A lot of our customers and prospects, this is where their mindset is at. And so this is something GitLab can indeed help with. Instead of having to manage a complex tool chain, GitLab can actually lower costs by lowering multiple license costs that you have, lowering the integration costs and the maintenance costs that you have to keep up with, and being able to reallocate those engineering resources towards productive work rather than maintenance work. So this is a great report. I think that there's one other part that I think I wanted to highlight in here, but if I can't find it quickly, there's so many good things. 46% of respondents struggle with the insufficient skills, expertise, or resources to integrate discrete tools. So we know this is something that customers are already struggling with. I have all these tools. I have to integrate them all together. That's a skill set in and of itself, and it doesn't move the chains forward for you at all. It doesn't move you forward at all. You're just standing in place, just trying to make all these things work together. So this is an awesome report. I want to highlight it. I know a lot of you have been using it, and so I just wanted to pull out a few of the stats and the parts that you can send them this report, and maybe in an email you can pull out this. Forrester recommends that you can reduce your resource expenditure on toolchain maintenance and instead find an out-of-the-box solution, right? So you can say, this is what Forrester says, and this is what GitLab does. Share the report if they want to dig in and read the whole report. That brings us to our last resource that I want to share, and this one is perhaps maybe a little less known, but is also linked in the handbook, and that is our customer anecdotes. So this is on our customer reference program, and in addition to our proof points, we just have a few of these anecdotes, and the reason why we call them anecdotes is often we will hear stories from customers where they're not a reference, right? This is not, we haven't gone through all of the legal and the process to get their logo and their reference, but these are stories we've heard from our customers, and we can go ahead and share the story. And some of these are pretty impressive. This one, there was the head of risk at a large US bank, and we were at dinner with her, and she mentioned, yeah, I have a team of 20 people that all those 20 people do is keep my SDLC tool chain up and running in my org. And then they were having dinner with a GitLab customer. The GitLab customer says, this is going to break your heart, but I have one guy that spends 25% time to keep GitLab up and going for 1,500 developers. So when you just think about that, one person spending 25% of their time to maintain the SDLC versus 20 people, that type of operational efficiency is very, very powerful. So with that, I really want to stop the screen share. I realize that was very rapid fire and fast paced. But I would love to open it up for a short bit of Q&A to discuss operational efficiencies.
I just wanted to add, William, what you said there, having been at that dinner that night when that comment happened, the person on the receiving end, since it wasn't coming from any of us, but it was one prospective customer, hearing it from a real customer, was like, oh my God, that was just like the light bulb went off there. So
I wasn't even there. Reb literally heard this spoken, but that's why we've put it in the handbook. It's not one that we
It was
have.
at a dinner that we had with a bunch of financial services customers in New York, and it was just like, the one person said, "Well, but why would you do that? I have like half a person that does this," and it's like, oh my god.
I put in the first question, William, so I'll verbalize that, but I would love to see more questions in here. So please, folks, add those to the Google Doc. Mine is, yeah, as William mentioned before, it has surfaced in different QBRs. People are sharing, hey, I've done this and had some success, or hey, I've done this and it didn't work so well. I wanted to hear from you all so you can share with each other as you're looking to demonstrate that empathy that William talked about during these difficult times, but also showcase and educate your prospects and customers about how we can help them reduce costs and improve efficiencies. What's working for you? What's not working? I'd love for you to share any kind of anecdotes that come to mind. Come on, I know we've got some best practices out there. I'll share a few that I've heard, and hopefully this spawns some additional ideas. If not, we'll move on to the next question. But a couple of Mark Ruggie had some good comments yesterday in a QBR that talked about an important thing is just make sure you're thinking about what industry each of your customers are in. Some of these industries aren't as hard hit. In fact, I'll put a link in this document. There, I came across a study from Avalara. It's another software company that did some research. They had a data scientist team look at what industries are actually booming during this recession as part of pandemic. And so just don't naturally assume everybody's experiencing the same thing. Some are experiencing more challenges than others. So that's one thing to keep in mind is like, it's not and this, it's not a one size fits all vanilla approach. I think that another angle is you talked about, William showed a lot of those proof points, but sharing those proof points that are as relevant and relevant to each of your customers as can be. So similar tech stack, similar industry, similar geography. Again, common sense stuff. You all know this, but I think you'll have more success sharing success stories that your customer, your prospect can relate to than just taking the same approach each time or one single favorite use case. The last thing I'll offer too is just approaching a conversation just to get the dialogue going of, hey, do you think your business is going to be better or worse off after this pandemic? And folks, we get returned to this new normal, and have them, talk about that, but then say, well, what about specifically for your department? How are you approaching this as a leader of your organization? Are you doing things now just to keep the lights on? Or are you starting to look at how can you take this adversity and start to look at ways to do things better? And that would perhaps lead into a conversation about, well, we've helped a lot of companies, improve how their software development tool chain, how they manage that, how they develop and deploy apps. So just a couple of suggestions that I've heard from others. Any others that you want to share?
Hey, David, this is Rick. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Rick.
Awesome. So one of the things that I've mentioned on a couple discovery calls with folks that have said, well, with everything going on, we're not really doing much right now. I've kind of spun that back on them and said, we're hearing that. We're also hearing this, drastic shift to the market has really shown a light on their lack of ability to execute and innovate quickly. So it's kind of spawned organizations to investigate, why can't they release code as fast as they need to, as fast as the market is shifting. So that's kind of made them rethink, okay, maybe now is a good time to be investigating ways to deliver code faster. You're on mute, David.
Thanks. I'm trying to capture those notes in the doc. Feel free to add if I haven't captured it well.
Sure.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that story, and I like that you shared it, Rick. Again, I think it's it comes down to us having empathy for our customers and understanding where they're at, and not kind of peanut buttering the same message across everybody, but really taking the time to understand folks and build that relational and have that consultative sales approach. The sales and the reps and the folks that I've seen be most successful at GitLab, you all did that really, really well. That having that empathy to understand where that customer's at, and in some cases, yeah, they're looking at this, and this is a place where GitLab can help. And I think that's what we have to offer. I want to let folks share additional anecdotes. One thing I will point out, and this is linked in the doc as well, is marketing is currently running an operational efficiencies campaign. So the epic for the campaign is linked in the notes document. This is also a landing page that, again, you can share on social or direct folks to. And this one is just to request a meeting to talk about reducing IT costs and simplifying our software tool chain. The reason I want to point this out is that we're having now a consistent message across our entire go-to-market spread. So marketing is putting out a message talking about simplifying the tool chain, increasing operational efficiencies. We've got this not only through this landing page, but other marketing efforts and campaigns. And so when those customers and when those prospects are coming through to you, they've already been primed with some of that message. So we can be speaking the same language end to end. It's one of the things I wanted to highlight there as well.
Hey, real quick, looks like we have a question from Tim in the notes document. Tim, would you like to verbalize that?
Sure. Usually one of the first things that comes up in a conversation about within like a discovery call with a customer is how many people are dedicated to a particular maintenance of tool chains. In light of the operational efficiencies, have we ever cataloged the number of dedicated engineers that would be assigned to GitLab and other tools, and how it compares before and after GitLab? Because like when I hear, a team of, for 400 developers, they have a team of 7 people. Is that high, low? Like, can I immediately say, hey, I can save you 2 or 3 engineers right from the get-go if you move to GitLab?
So I'll take a stab at this one, although I would welcome anyone else to weigh in. My answer is it very solidly depends. And of course, this is kind of the same kind of answer when I'll often get the question, how do I dimension my system? I need to run a GitLab instance for X number of people. How much hardware do I need? And the answer is, okay, well, we have some guidelines. We have some reference architecture, but it's really going to depend on your specific use case. How are you using it? Somebody might have, put a lot of load on it, and some people might put a little, even if they both have 100 people using it. So the number of people that are needed to manage a tool chain varies widely from organization to organization. So I would personally not recommend going in with a strong message of, oh, you have 7 people today, I can immediately cut 3 of those. I personally think you'll lose credibility if you go out with a message that's strong and overt. But instead, I would probably have more of an empathy of, I would ask them and just kind of learn what would you do? What would these folks be doing if they didn't have to do this maintenance? What type of work would they be enjoying? Would maybe their satisfaction level go higher? Or what could you get done if you could reclaim some of that time and understand the value to them? And then you can share some of those anecdotes. So let me just tell you a little bit about that you can reduce toolchain costs, and just be candid about it. It's going to vary from org to org, depending on how your team is set up and what your use case is. But I can give you some data points. I can't tell you solidly, but I can give you some data points. One data point is we had one customer, one prospect, and she had 20 people managing a tool chain for 1,500 developers. And another one of our customers had the same development team, but they had one person managing it 25%. So that's a data point, and I would share it as like, this is a data point. That's my kind of current, that's my advice. I'd welcome other folks to offer theirs as well.
Hey,
Well, I would just, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Dan Foley. Yeah, I agree. As far as whenever you approach that, I wouldn't focus on, you have 9 developers maintaining the software development tool chain. We can reduce that to 1 or 2. I would actually just start focusing on more of the speed to mission. Address the ease of use as far as single application and minimal updates and patches, as well as bug fixes, and if Jenkins crashes or whatnot, just minimize that, but add more of speed to focus or speed to mission. That way, you're looking at the productive business case versus I'm minimizing, or I can at least minimize or take away some of your development team.
Yeah, I would echo what William said with, if you stress the operational efficiencies, you can let them take away from that what that is, right? Does that mean my people can do more stuff, or do I need fewer people? Don't lead with that, because they may be offended if you say one of those things, right?
Right. Yeah.
But that way, you can gauge their reaction, and, well, does that mean that instead of 10 people, it might only need 7 and those other 3 can go away? Sure. But I wouldn't want to suggest that first. Or does that mean that those other 3 people can be doing something useful? Yeah.
All right, team, it looks like we are all out of time. If you have some additional questions or comments you want to add to the document, we can get back to you, but it's a pleasure having everyone today. Thank you.
Bye all. Enjoy the beach there.
Thanks.